Hello, welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. As you know, we're here talking about some stacks, some fades, some pitchers, all the things that you want to be looking at, avoiding, and taking advantage of for tonight's slate on FanDuel and DraftKings starting at 7:05. So, Josh, you ready to get things kicked off here? We got a nice little 8-game slate here.
Yeah, I am. Definitely see some potential for some stacks, some potential for some great pitching tonight. Good mix of things out there, and price points to kind of allow you to build a number of different rosters that should look pretty awesome.
Absolutely. We're gonna go game by game here, starting off with Milwaukee at Pittsburgh, and this one we're getting a matchup. Well, half a matchup we thought we were getting last night. This one's Jeff Locke against Kyle Lohse. Jeff Locke, a small favorite at -130, 7.5 run total. So Vegas not expecting huge things in that pitcher's park in PNC. But with that being said, Jeff Locke was the guy we were trying to target yesterday, and nothing has changed on my end, and I can't imagine much has changed on your end. So the Milwaukee bats are still going to be in play. This is certainly a stack you can exploit. Aramis Ramirez at $3,000 on FanDuel. Excuse me, a tremendous price tonight. You've got Ryan Braun at a great price in the outfield as well. He's sitting at, I lost it, $3,700. So Brewers stack, definitely one that I like, one that you like. Who else do you want to make sure?
Throw Chris Davis in there. I would expect him to move up in the lineup, probably hit 5th. So you got a nice little 3 through 5 stack of Braun, Aramis, and Chris Davis at reasonable price points, so you aren't really hamstringing your team. That's 7.5 total, a little lower than I usually like to target in a stack, but there aren't a ton of high totals tonight, and the matchup just looks right. I think it definitely plays into a stack, a very playable stack. And we wanted to target Locke last night. It was a bummer that he didn't get on the hill, but we're going to get our chance to get $3,000 Aramis Ramirez, get $3,600 or $3,700 Ryan Braun, and get a cheap Chris Davis and get that stack in there and surround them with either one of the stud pitchers on the hill or maybe some other stud hitters. And I like that. That's a group that I'm going to turn to a bit.
Yeah, and it's really not going to be that difficult, like you mentioned, to get those guys in with a big stud pitcher as well, because you know, you've got some fairly cheap price tags with these guys, so you can get yourself a King Felix maybe, especially on DraftKings with those guys, and feel comfortable about that targeting Jeff Locke. So the Pittsburgh side, not a team I'm going out of my way to target. I mean, Kyle Lohse, an adequate pitcher. He's pretty much the Wandy Rodriguez right now. I mean, he's good enough to play. He's good enough that you don't want to target him, but he's not bad enough that you want to go out of your way to expect him to get pummeled.
Yeah, I mean, and he's pitching at PNC Park. He's got some GPP appeal, very limited, because he'd be a guy that I would be more inclined to go after on FanDuel, where you're just hoping to get that win. Doesn't punch out a lot of batters, so he has a very low ceiling on DraftKings. But at $6,500, decent price point in GPPs if you want to load up on hitters. Don't love Lohse, but his fly ball rate shouldn't hurt him at PNC Park. So there is modest appeal to use him in a GPP. Again, not a guy that I feel like I need to roster, but if you told me he's on your GPP team and you really love the hitters that you can get with him, I get it. Like, I understand it. It makes sense to me, and I think there's definitely rationale there to use him. Pirates off to a slow start. But not a guy that I'm going out of my way to target to own, and not a guy that I'm going out of my way to target to use hitters against. Really, the one name that I would look at is see where Gregory Polanco slotted again tonight. If he's hitting 3rd, he offers a really nice price point as a lefty facing a righty. Yeah,
I like that call as well. And my whole thought on Kyle Lohse, I still remember his short time in Cincinnati where he just wasn't very good. He's one of the many who leaves, had some success, and now on the tail end of his career, but you know, a better real life pitcher than fantasy pitcher.
Yes,
is, I guess, the best way to put that. So, all right, next up we have the Yankees at the Rays, ex-Devil Rays. I almost said the Devil Rays from back in the day, but a nice pitching matchup here. Jake Odorizzi versus Masahiro Tanaka. You've got Tanaka at $8,700 on FanDuel, Odorizzi at $8,500. If you move over to DraftKings at those prices, you've got Tanaka at $10,200, Odorizzi at $7,600. So that right there tells you, if you look at the Vegas odds, a pick 'em right now, -105 for both sides, 7 run total, And I know you've got some strong feelings on one side where you're just not a big fan of Tanaka.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get swept into the media hype about, is his elbow going to hold up? Is he holding back? But the results indicate that there might actually be fire where there's smoke in this instance. And he's a definite fade on DraftKings for me. 5 figures. If you're going to spend that much, you're better off paying for King Felix at another $1,000, or actually spending less and grabbing a better pitcher in Zach Greinke, but that's beside the point. I'm not using Tanaka on DraftKings. Price point is at least favorable on FanDuel. If you do think that maybe he ditches this approach of throwing 2-seamers and trying to induce ground balls and goes back to blowing hitters away with that 4-seamer, well, then you're going to end up with a nice price point at $8,700. I have seen nothing indicating that he's going to abandon this crappy plan that he's adopted of abandoning what worked for him last year and going to a new two-seamer approach and, I don't know, reserving the splitter for 2-strike counts and nonsense like that. I don't like Tanaka tonight. I'm not going out of my way to target him just because the Rays bats. You just don't have enough bats that I see worth hooking together. Not a number of lefties that can really exploit a lefty-righty matchup. So I not going out of my way to stack against him, but I will get some exposure to him with maybe your boy Kevin Kiermaier, maybe my cheap shortstop du jour, if that's even a thing. Like, I'm just making up words now. As Drupal Cabrera at $2,800 at shortstop. I like him, but I actually have strong feelings about the other pitcher as well. Love Jake Odorizzi at $8,500 on FanDuel. I love him even more at just $7,600. Makes for a great SP2 if you want to grab one of the aces in front of him and still not pay for through the nose for your SP2. Odorizzi, fly ball pitcher, but he gets to call Tropicana home tonight, and Tropicana does a good job of reducing home run output, so good ballpark for him to be pitching in. And can miss some bats, didn't strike out a lot in his last start, but is a bat misser, so I do like Jake Odorizzi a lot tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, one of the highest strikeout rates on the board despite some aces, 24.2% last year, and seems like his biggest weakness was the fly balls, and he's been keeping under control. 13 ground ball outs in his last outing, so definitely like him. Some solid upside there. It's a guy that people will probably be a little bit hesitant to play against Masahiro Tanaka, but Hiro is misspelled, in case you were wondering, with Tanaka's name. So, with that being said, I think a contrarian stack, if you're not playing Odorizzi, could be the Yankees, because they do have some pop in their bats. But like you said, not a great ballpark for producing home runs and long balls. So, not a way I'm going, because I will have quite a bit of Jake Odorizzi tonight as well.
Yep.
All right, Oakland at Kansas City is our next game here, and this one gives us Jesse Hahn at Yordano Ventura. Ventura, -128 favorite, 7.5 run total here. And Kansas City's a team that's been crushing the ball in the early going here, kind of picking up where they left off last season with their strong output. But this is also a team, they don't strike out a lot. They don't hit a lot of home runs either. But you've got some guys like Lorenzo Cain are absolutely on fire right now, one of the hottest hitters in the world. Ventura's an interesting option. He's a guy with a decent strikeout rate, just over 20%. Pretty solid against lefties. So for me on this side, I'm really not targeting either pitcher. I'm not really playing much Hahn because I'm worried about that offense, and Hahn doesn't have a ton of upside. But at the same time, I mean, this just seems like one of those games that if you completely avoid it, I don't think it would kill you in tournaments.
Me either. I like Jesse Hahn a lot long term, but he's a guy that he doesn't strike out enough batters where you're going to be looking to roster him when he's not a betting favorite. So as an underdog, not a fan. Really need that win from him to make it worth rostering him. Ventura, better option. $8,500 at FanDuel and $7,800 at DraftKings. I like the strikeout upside. His swinging strike rate last year was strong. Actually indicates he should probably strike out more batters than he has. But I'd rather use Jake Odorizzi around the same price point. So I imagine that when I'm selecting lineups, probably not going to have many shares, if any, of Ventura. And it's nothing against Ventura. It's just better options at that price point. A few hitters that I like against him, but nothing that I'm going to stack against him. There's not enough good left-handed bats. And as you noted, Ventura pretty good against left-handed batters last year, so it's not like we have a huge exploitable split. This is one of those weird games where I might grab pieces, maybe a couple hitters if I like the price point, but I'm not really going to use any of the pitchers at a high rate, and I'm not really going to go out of my way to grab a number of bats from either side. It's going to be maybe some piecemeal lineups with a few A's, a few Royals here and there, but it's more going to be about more or less going to be liking those price points and liking the way that they flesh out the rest of a roster.
Yeah, and those two guys, not guys I'm going out of my way to target, especially on DraftKings, because the only pitcher with higher walk rate than these two guys last season was C.J. Wilson, as far as tonight's slate goes. So both guys struggle with command at times. And the last thing you want, especially on DraftKings with negatives for walks, negatives for hits, is a bunch of ducks on the pond. You make one mistake, and there goes your night. You give up a 3-run homer, and you're in big trouble for the win. You're in big trouble in your GPPs, and that could be a crippling loss right there. So I don't like targeting guys who walk a lot of batters in my GPPs, especially at DraftKings.
Definitely.
All right, next up, the Angels at the Houston Astros. And this one gives us an interesting matchup where we've got Dallas Keuchel, minus 117 favorite over C.J. Wilson and his beautiful hair. An 8-run total here, and really all C.J. Wilson has going for him tonight that I like is the hair, because I'm not a big fan. He's got some pretty bad splits against righties, a 345 WOBA allowed last year. Pretty tough on lefties, but that doesn't matter a whole lot against this righty-dominant Houston lineup. And Dallas Keuchel, 63, yes, 63.5 ground ball rate last season, the best in the majors. It's not even particularly close. The guy is a monster, a machine at keeping it on the ground. I love him tonight in some tournaments. $8,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's got a great price at $71. And people will be scared off due to the matchup against the Angels. But like you mentioned on the earlier podcast, it's Mike Trout and it's everybody else that you're worried about here.
Yeah, I mean, if he can navigate Trout, there are a couple other bats in that lineup that have some pop and are a little bit better against lefties than righties. But, I mean, I'm not running away from Albert Pujols or David Freese at this point in either of their career. Chris Iannetta, better against lefties than righties, but not a guy that you say, whoa, Chris Iannetta can't be starting a lefty against those Angels. So Keuchel looks like a good GPP play to me. Really like the price point. Should be a decent SP2 on DraftKings at just $7,100. Nice option to offset the top names there. Decent tournament play at just $8,300 on FanDuel. Going to give you some nice flexibility to spend on bats there. Don't like them as much in cash games because you want to get those big betting favorites and make sure that you lock up that W on FanDuel. So don't like him as much in cash games there. Could see him in some cash games as an SP2 on DraftKings just because of the nature of needing to own two pitchers. But really like Keuchel. Think that there's some huge stack potential against C.J. Wilson tonight with the Astros. Good price points. As you noted, very right-handed dominant lineup. You just starts at the top with Altuve, Springer, Jed Lowry. You'll probably see Evan Gattis move up to cleanup tonight. I'd expect Luis Valbuena to drop in the order against the lefty if he's in the lineup at all. Maybe Chris Carter hits fifth. That would be 5 righties to start things off. That's going to be very tough for a guy with Wilson's WOBA issues to navigate. A lot of power in there, too. So you get any of these ducks on the pond. We know Wilson has some issues with control. Walks a couple of these guys. You get Gattis up there. Gattis finds the seats. All of a sudden, you're looking at a really nice stack.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And the Astros have been a nice contrarian stack recently. They're one of those teams always kind of flies under the radar. But, a couple times recently, they've been solid. And especially pair them with that pitcher. And he's not in that bad of a spot. On paper, it may seem tough to those who don't dig, but I do like the matchup a lot on both sides for the Astros tonight, so I'm a big fan. All right, next up we have Miami at the New York Mets, and this gives us a great matchup to exploit. And I saw an awesome number about my ex-Red, Matt Latos. His ground ball rate so far through, I guess you can call it 2 starts. The first one it was a start. It wasn't a finish. It wasn't even a middle, but less than a 12% ground ball rate through 2 starts this season. Absolutely awful. I was originally upset as a Reds fan with this trade. Now I'm absolutely thrilled. I mean, you can't pitch much worse than Matt Latos has pitched thus far this season. And somehow a 6.5 run total in this game. Jacob deGrom, a solid favorite at minus 145. Vegas is saying the Mets are going to score runs. Miami's probably not. And that Matt Latos is going to get hit. And I do think Matt Latos is going to get rocked today. All the Mets bats in play for me. Michael Kadire swinging a hot bat. Lucas Duda, Travis d'Arnaud, even Curtis Granderson up at the top of that order. I mean, pick your poison here. I'm going to continue to target Matt Latos until he shows some velocity or something. But, I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot going for him right now.
No, very hittable. I was curious to see if the velocity was still down. Gained almost a tick from last year, but still down from his peak years with the Reds and with the Padres. So velocity's not all the way back to what it was. I don't think it ever will get back to that point. The most important thing is he's giving up a ton of fly balls, as you noted, and he's not missing bats. And if you're not missing bats, you're running the risk of getting pummeled. And Matt Latos knows a thing or two about getting pummeled. He's been getting rocked so far this year, like Granderson, like Duda, like d'Arnaud. Got a nice little 1-3 stack if the lineup shapes up like I expect it to. You mentioned Kadire. Kadire looks pretty good as well. Want to get some Mets against Latos. Like the fact that DeGrom's a sizable betting favorite. And as you said, the way that line skews, even with the 7.5 total, Mets are expected to score runs because DeGrom is a sizable favorite. So, like to get some Mets in there. Like to get DeGrom as a starting pitcher. Love the price point, both on FanDuel and DraftKings. $8,400 on DraftKings, $9,400 on FanDuel. Expect him to get the win. Plus, he's under 5 figures on both sides. Gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan of Jacob deGrom as well. So on the Miami side, really not a lot of guys you want to target. If you're going in a tournament, Stanton's always in play, but that's it for me, and I'm really probably not even going there.
Yeah, I agree. Just not a high enough fly ball rate from deGrom to make it worth rolling with a very expensive Stanton. Stanton hits lefties and righties, but I mean, if I'm grabbing Stanton in a tournament play, it's because I want him facing a fly ball pitcher, and deGrom just doesn't have a high fly ball rate. So, yeah, I'm fading all the Marlins bats.
Yeah, absolutely with you there. Next up, Arizona at San Francisco. Ruby De La Rosa, or Ruby, I'm not sure how you say it. I think it's Ruby, gets Chris Heston. Chris C. Heston here, a -140 favorite, 7.5 run total in San Francisco, Net Hitters Park, and this one, Heston's a nice value across the board if you want to target him. I don't think he's a bad option. De La Rosa, a guy who really struggled last year, off to a decent start this year. So, give me your take on this game, because this is a game that's kind of interesting to me. I feel like I'm not afraid to have some Chris Heston exposure, especially with him being a sizable favorite.
No, I actually wrote about Chris Heston for Fangraphs the other day, and digging into the numbers, he's throwing a little bit harder, sinker ball pitcher. He has a very Keuchel-like ground ball rate this year, 61% through 2 starts, and he's always had a history of keeping the ball on the ground in the minors. So, do like him at $5,000 on FanDuel. Like him a little bit at $5,400 on DraftKings. The biggest knock on him is not anything about him, it's the offense backing him. He's going to need some run support if he's going to get a W. Always tough to come by with this very dinged up, very struggling Giants lineup right now. But if he gets some run support, Heston's going to look like a really good value play. Not a huge strikeout pitcher, but with the increased velocity, he is missing bats a little bit. So I would almost call him a right-handed like Keuchel, basically, right at this point in time, which at that price point, you got to like a lot. Ruby De La Rosa, I mean, we'll say that he's pitching at AT&T Park, so he's got that going for him, but has some control issues, struggled against left-handed bats last year. Couple Giants hitters. I mean, you mentioned Joe Panic in the FanDuel Punch-Out as a guy that you like. I like him as well. Maybe get a couple Giants bats against him. You get switch hitter Angel Pagan behind Panic. Maybe hook the two of them together. Lefty Nori Aoki at the top of the lineup. Buster Posey always in play as the best hitting catcher in baseball. Not saying that I would go out of my way to get a stack. AT&T Park isn't conducive to that. But if you want to go back, you got three guys that are going to be batting left-handed against De La Rosa to open the lineup, and then you got Posey filling a bad offensive position at catcher. Not the worst 1 through 4 stack in the world.
Absolutely. Sorry, someone started mowing their lawn, and I had my window open, so I wanted to try to get that close so it's not too loud. Hopefully it's not too loud up in my microphone here. But either way, next up on the docket here, we have Texas at Seattle here. The King is on the mound here, so he's a obvious monster favorite, as he usually is when he faces any team, especially a bad offensive team like Texas. minus 220 here for Felix Hernandez. 6.5 run total. Vegas is telling us what we already know here. He's the biggest favorite. You get him where you can afford him. He's your cash game pitcher, and he's the best pitcher on the mound today. It's not particularly close.
Yeah, I mean, King Felix is a man amongst boys most of the time, and that's the case today. He's a beast. Looking at the price on FanDuel compared to yesterday's aces, Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer, a little more expensive than Scherzer. Scherzer was $11,000 yesterday. Kershaw was 11,600, 12,600. 12,000. I don't remember at this point, but I do know that Felix is a little bit cheaper, and I can tell you that I built some very good rosters around Scherzer yesterday, so don't be scared off by the price point on FanDuel. Don't be scared off by it at DraftKings either, because you can get that cheap SP2 to go with him. As we noted, we like Keuchel at 7,100. We like Heston at a bargain basement price in the 5,000. So you can hook those two and get that elite production from Hernandez. Really should get the win with him. I'm going to be avoiding all Texas bats, as you should be avoiding all bats when Felix is on the hill. Another guy that keeps the ball on the ground when he does give up fly balls, he's a Safeco man. That ball's not leaving the yard. So I like Felix tonight. Elite ground ball rate, elite strikeout rate as well. Very good strikeout pitcher. So, I mean, he does it all. And the price reflects that, but as they say, you pay what you get, or you get what you pay for. And in this case, you're getting the best starter on the hill tonight, top 5 starter in the game when you're paying that $11,400. And he's not facing a very good lineup either, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like one of those times where if you're playing cash games, if you're not playing Felix Hernandez, you're overthinking it. If he goes and has a Felix Hernandez-esque type game, which, like you mentioned, all the factors go in his favor, 56% ground ball rate, 27% strikeout rate, bad offense on the other side. All the things going in Felix Hernandez's favor. Don't get cute with this one. He's your cash game pitcher, and he makes for a great tournament pitcher as well because he is the top option on the slate. So, big fan there. And, yeah, I mean, this. If you want to talk about stacks here, those Seattle bats, one of my favorites of the day, as they usually are at home against the righty. I mean, you already talked about Robbie Cano being one of your favorite plays on the day. And, I mean, for good reason. I mean, you get yourself some Cano, some Seager. Cruz obviously better against a lefty, but the guy's otherworldly right now. I mean, that pathetic 3-for-4 performance last night where the ball didn't leave the yard. I'll give him a pass on that one, batting 750. But, you know, I mean, just immense upside with this Mariners lineup against Colby Lewis, who has been a thorn in the side, I'll say, for a lot of DFSs of the past few years because he is a bad pitcher against lefties and against righties. But every once in a while, like we saw against Oakland, I mean, he had himself a nice outing, got himself a win, but I mean, he's just not a good pitcher, and I'm not going to ever not target Colby Lewis because I think it might be the one day where he gets lucky with some BABIP.
And here's the thing: in addition to the 3 names you listed, how about platoon outfielder Seth Smith, who should be hitting second against him as a left-handed batter? I love that. I mean, give us the Colby Lewis left-handed WOBA number, please.
I've got it right here. It is. Oh, man, I can't even look. 373. So he's over here one-upping Jordan Lyles and doing a little bit of damage on Jeremy Guthrie, making him look like an ace, too.
I mean, does that sound like a WOBA you want to target? I'm thinking maybe a 2 through 5 stack of Seth Smith, Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, and Kyle Seager could pay some dividends tonight. Just me. Call me crazy, but I want a piece of that 370-plus WOBA with 3 left-handed bats and the otherworldly Nelson Cruz. And you're going to get some guys on base. You're going to get some runs driven in. You're going to get some runs scored. And with the power that you've got mixed in there, you got a chance for that round tripper that everybody loves, where you're watching your stack, you're cheering at the television, you got your runners on, and then Nelson Cruz deposits one in the seats, and that's when you just kick back, take a swig of your favorite beverage for the evening and say, yep, called it, and just enjoy it, and watch those points rack up on DraftKings and FanDuel. So that's a stack that I love tonight. Yeah, huge fan. If you want one more thing, not that you needed any other reason to pick on Colby Lewis, but his fly ball rate of 44.2% is second only to CJ Wilson among 2014 stats. Is the pitchers on the slate tonight. Sorry, I can't talk. Apparently, it's early. But his fly ball rate definitely inspires some more confidence in my stacks
here tonight. And I think you and I will both have a great deal of Seattle Mariners stacks tonight.
Yep.
All right, one more game here to talk about. And we already talked about one of the pitchers. And let me tell you, one of the pitchers here is really good, and one of the pitchers here is really bad. Zach Greinke, $10,100 on FanDuel. Not a bad price for him. I'd still think I'd rather pay for Felix Hernandez, but we are talking GPPs here. $9,600 on DraftKings, a little bit better of a price as well. And Jordan Lyles, doesn't matter what his price is. There's no way in hell I'm playing him against the Dodgers tonight. So give him to me for free. No thanks. I'll leave that slot empty and try to avoid my negative points that might happen tonight. And Jordan Lyles, speaking of some bad splits here, 372 WOBA against lefties. So he's over there. He fell just short of Colby Lewis last year for the high score. So a little bit of a disappointment for him. But, you know, if you're not, they'd say if you're not first, you're last. But in this situation, if you're not first, you're second place. And second place is really bad in this scenario. So I will be playing a ton of Dodgers. Another great stack here. You've got your Adrian Gonzalez. You've got even Howie Kendrick's been batting cleanup. You've got Jimmy Rollins at the top of the order. Yasiel Puig, I don't know what his status is for today, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be playing today. Doesn't really matter to me. You can get yourself some Carl Crawford, some Andre Ethier, whoever you want in this one. Big fan of targeting the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, assuming the hamstring's still bugging Puig, you're looking at nifty little 1 through 5 again of probably going to be Rollins, Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez, Howie Kendrick, and then hopefully Yasmani Grandal. At that price point, I really hope he's in the lineup and they don't give him a day off for A.J. Ellis because, I mean, I have no problem trotting out a Dodgers 1 through 5 stack with you'd have 4 players that would be batting left-handed against Jordan Lyles. That's 4 guys who would be going in with the advantage of a 370 plus WOBA. And keep this in mind, that 370 WOBA was accumulated against all left-handed batters. So that means that that's facing the Joe Panics of the world. That's facing the Scooter Genetts, your light-hitting second baseman, like not just the stars of the world. So slightly more difficult assignment when you're facing well above average hitters and you struggle to get even below average hitters out. So really like a stack against Lyles a lot tonight. Even some of the down order guys look pretty good in one-off plays. I mean, Jock Peterson bats left-handed, so gotta like him a little bit. Andre Ethier, if he's in the lineup again, if Puig's out, you'd expect him to hit probably 6th again for the Dodgers. Left-handed batter, so getting the platoon advantage again. Lyles is going to get rocked most likely. Greinke looks like a strong play, obviously. I think I would rather pony up for King Felix because the assignment is more difficult for Greinke. Yes, these are the Rockies on the road, not at home, but they do have a number of left-handed bats that could at least give him a little bit of trouble. And Troy Tulowitzki's Troy Tulowitzki, so I mean, not the greatest matchup, not the worst matchup either. Should get the win at the least, which is huge. You're always looking for that. Does have strikeout potential, keeps the ball on the ground at a great rate. So I do like Greinke. Problem is price point on FanDuel at least. I'm going with the King because he is a full $1,600 cheaper on DraftKings. Might consider rostering him a little bit more on DraftKings. Especially since he does, as I noted, he can strike out quite a few batters, so you're going to get some points there. Doesn't allow a ton of base runners, so not a huge drop-off from Felix to Greinke there, but where I'm more concerned with getting the win on FanDuel, I'm going to pony that little bit extra up and get King Felix.
Yeah, and I should mention with the Vegas odds, I guess I kind of skipped it on this last one. Greinke is listed as a minus 200 favorite in this one as well, so, you know, you got yourself a solid favorite as well. If you really want to pay up for 2 starting pitchers, there's not a shortage of value tonight. So you may be able to get yourself Greinke and Hernandez. I don't know if that's necessarily the way you want to go, but in tournaments, you know, you get those 2 guys, they both toss a gem. You get a couple dingers from your lineup, your cheap guys, and all of a sudden you're in a great spot in your GPPs anyway. So that's not a bad way to go either. So yeah, with that, that's going to be the end of it for us here. Hopefully we helped you guys out with some stacks, some targets, some pitchers for tonight's slate. And we will see you guys again next time. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.